My friends introduced me to a girl as a prank, but I liked her and wanted to go on a second date with her. Now my friends are mad at me. They said I ruined the prank. I never expected that meeting a girl would cause so much drama in my life. Until recently, I would have said I had a pretty tight group of friends, guys I'd known since high school or college. The ones I could count on to show up for game nights, hangouts, and pretty much anything else. We all had a similar sense of humor. And though they were a little more outgoing than I was, we usually saw eye to eye. Pranks were part of our friendship. They liked to poke fun at my single status, dropping jokes about setting me up on blind dates or finding the one. But it was all in good fun, or so I thought. I hadn't dated anyone seriously in a while, and my friends didn't let me forget it. They'd rib me, asking what happened to the cute waitress from the coffee shop or the girl from the gym. But most of the time, I just laughed it off. I wasn't actively looking for anything serious. And honestly, I thought I'd know when I met the right person. One day, my friend Dave sent a group text with way more excitement than usual. He mentioned he'd met the perfect girl for me through some friends of his, saying she was smart, funny, and definitely my type. That last part was funny because he always insisted on my having a type, quiet, kind, down to earth, which was pretty generic. But it's how he'd always imagined it. At first, I was skeptical. This wasn't the first time my friends had tried to set me up. And my track record with their perfect matches was questionable at best. But they all seemed weirdly insistent. Even Matt and Jason, who usually weren't too invested in my love life. Dude, trust us. You need to get out there and meet someone, Matt said, leaning back with that grin that said he thought he was doing me a huge favor. I shrugged. I don't know, these things never really work out. I wasn't trying to sound negative. But the last few setups had been disasters, either awkward, dull, or, in one memorable instance, she'd spent the entire date on her phone. Come on, man, Jason chimed in. What do you have to lose? It's just a date, and she's cool. You'll have fun. Eventually, with a bit more nudging, I caved. Part of me thought it would be easier to just go on the date than to deal with their constant reminders about my lack of a dating life. Plus, the way they described her made me curious. She seemed genuinely interesting, and they seemed genuinely enthusiastic, which made it feel like they were actually looking out for me. So I agreed, and Dave set it up for that weekend. When Saturday finally rolled around, I found myself feeling nervous, a rare thing for me. But it was a good kind of nervous. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt excited about a date. And the fact that it was a blind date made it feel even more unpredictable. I picked a casual spot downtown, a cozy cafe with just the right vibe, and got there about 15 minutes early, sipping my coffee and hoping she wouldn't be late. The whole thing felt almost surreal. Then, just as I was checking the time, she walked in. I recognized her instantly from the description my friends had given me. She was petite, with a warm smile and expressive eyes. There was something easygoing about her, even from the way she scanned the room. Finally locking eyes with me and offering a small wave, I stood up, suddenly a little nervous, and we exchanged introductions. Her name was Sarah, and right from the start, I felt like there was something genuinely different about her. We started with the usual small talk, where we were from, what we did for work, but it flowed so naturally that I quickly forgot about my nerves. She had a quick wit, and every time I made a joke, she had a way of coming back with something even funnier. We talked about everything, favorite books, travel plans, ridiculous memories from childhood. By the time we'd finished our drinks, it was clear we had a ton in common. She even seemed a little surprised, like she hadn't expected it to go this well either. At one point, I caught myself thinking, wow, they actually did a good job this time. My friends had really come through. And I was already thinking about asking her out again. Toward the end of the date, I couldn't help but ask if she'd be interested in meeting up again sometime. Sarah paused, giving me a thoughtful look before nodding with a smile that made me feel like I'd scored a rare win. Yeah, she said, I'd like that. We exchanged numbers, and I left the cafe feeling something I hadn't in a while, hopeful. As I walked home, I was already running through ideas for a second date, and it was like I couldn't stop smiling. I knew I'd catch some teasing from the guys. But for once, I didn't mind. I'd met someone who made me feel excited and intrigued. And that was worth all the jokes they could throw at me. The following day, I couldn't wait to tell my friends about the date. After all, they'd been the ones who set it up. So I figured they'd be happy to know it had gone well. I sent a message to our group chat. Date went great. Think I might ask her out again. You guys actually did good this time. It took a few minutes. But the first reply came from Matt. Wait, what? Then Dave chimed in. Are you serious? Man? Their responses caught me off guard. Instead of the congratulations or lighthearted teasing I expected, their reactions were confusing. I tried to brush it off, replying casually, yeah, why not? She's cool. We had a good time. Almost immediately, Jason sent a message that felt way too intense. Dude, you're taking this way too far. It was just supposed to be fun. I stared at my phone, my mind trying to make sense of what I was reading. I typed out a reply, feeling a mix of confusion and annoyance. What's that supposed to mean? I thought you guys wanted me to meet her. A few seconds later, Dave sent a message. Bro, it was a prank. We didn't actually expect you to. Like her. She was in on it. I felt my stomach drop as I read that last part. A prank? My mind replayed the date, the laughs we shared, the way Sarah seemed genuinely interested in me. Was all of that fake? Suddenly, the whole evening felt tainted, like I'd walked into a joke without realizing I was the punchline. I could almost hear them laughing at my expense, and it stung in a way I hadn't expected. I took a deep breath and typed out another message, trying to keep it calm. So you're telling me this whole thing was just a setup for a laugh? Matt's reply was immediate. Come on, man, don't take it so personally. We just thought it would be funny. And Sarah agreed to go along with it. You're always so serious about dating. So we figured it would be a laugh to lighten you up a bit. A laugh, to lighten me up. I could feel my face getting hot as the realization sank in. I genuinely liked her, felt a connection, and now, knowing that she'd been in on this prank, it made me feel foolish. But more than anything, I felt hurt. They'd set me up for embarrassment. Not because they thought it would help me find someone, but because they thought it would be funny to watch me fall for it. Yeah, well, joke's on me, I guess, I replied, feeling the bitter edge to my words. Another message popped up, this time from Jason. Seriously, man, you're overreacting. It was just harmless fun. No need to go asking her out again. She's not actually into you. It was all part of the setup. I couldn't take it anymore. I shut my phone off, letting their messages sit unanswered. A part of me wanted to lash out, to tell them just how messed up it was to play with someone's feelings like this. But I couldn't shake the thought of Sarah and the way she'd laughed at my jokes. The genuine look in her eyes as she'd listened to me. Even if it had started as a prank, I couldn't help but think there had been something real there. And if she was willing to go along with a setup like this, what did that say about her? The more I thought about it, the more torn I felt. Part of me wanted to confront her directly, to ask her how much of what we'd shared was real and how much was just for the sake of a laugh. But another part of me wondered if it would be worth it. Maybe I'd just end up humiliating myself even more, digging into something that didn't need digging into. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed answers. So, after a few hours of pacing around my apartment and running through all the things I might say, I finally picked up my phone again and scrolled to Sarah's contact. My fingers hovered over the screen, and, before I could second-guess myself, I typed out a message. Hey, I really enjoyed our date. I'd like to see you again if you're up for it. I held my breath as I sent it, wondering if I'd just made a massive mistake. For a few long, excruciating minutes, there was no reply, but then, my phone vibrated, and her name flashed across the screen. I'd like that too. The reply sent a shock of relief through me. And for a moment, I almost forgot about the prank. She wanted to see me again. That had to mean something. Right? Maybe she hadn't been in on it the way my friends had suggested. Maybe she'd genuinely enjoyed the date too. Either way, I figured this was my chance to find out. So I suggested we meet at a small park nearby. Somewhere quiet where we could talk. When I saw her again, sitting on a bench and looking just as beautiful as the first time, all my doubts came rushing back. But I knew I had to be upfront. So as soon as we sat down, I looked her in the eyes and said, I need to ask you something. She nodded, looking a little wary but open. What's up? Were you in on it? I asked, feeling awkward as soon as the words left my mouth. My friends told me the date was a prank, and they said you were playing along. A shadow crossed her face, and she let out a long sigh. Yeah, I was, sort of in on it. She looked down, fidgeting with her hands. "Your friends reached out to me and pitched it as a harmless joke. They thought it'd be funny to set you up on a date and see if you'd take it seriously." My heart sank, but I forced myself to stay calm. "So, that's all it was? Just a setup?" She looked up, her eyes soft and a little apologetic. "At first, maybe, but honestly, once we started talking, I forgot all about it. I actually had a great time. I didn't expect to like you as much as I did." The words felt like a lifeline. "So, when you said you wanted to see me again, that wasn't just part of the joke?" She shook her head. "No, it wasn't. Look, I know this whole thing started in a messed up way, and I get if you're angry. But I really did enjoy spending time with you. And if you're willing to look past how it started, I'd really like to get to know you better." Hearing her say that shifted something in me. I still felt a sting from knowing my friends had set the whole thing up as a joke. But Sarah's sincerity made it feel a little less painful. Maybe there was a real chance for something here, even if it had come from the strangest place. "I'd like that too," I said, managing a small smile. "But I think I need to clear things up with my friends first." She nodded, looking understanding. "That's fair. Just let me know how it goes. Okay?" As I walked back home that evening, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that Sarah's interest was real, frustration with my friends, and a growing determination to address the way they'd crossed the line. Whatever their intentions, they needed to understand that their so-called harmless prank had real consequences, and that I wasn't willing to brush it off so easily. The next day, I woke up feeling determined to talk to my friends. As much as I'd enjoyed reconnecting with Sarah the night before, the whole situation still left a sour taste in my mouth. They needed to know how far they'd crossed the line, and I wasn't about to let them brush it off with a "just a prank" excuse. I sent a message to the group chat. "Hey, we need to talk. Can we meet at Dave's tonight?" They replied quickly, seeming curious but unaware of the seriousness of the conversation to come. When I arrived at Dave's house that evening, the three of them, Dave, Matt, and Jason, were already there, lounging on the couch with drinks in hand. They greeted me like nothing was out of the ordinary, laughing and joking as usual. "Hey, there he is." Dave grinned, raising his drink. "How's our Casanova doing?" I ignored the joke and sat down across from them, crossing my arms. "I'm here because we need to talk about that date you set up. I found out it was a prank, and I'm not cool with it." Their laughter fizzled, and they exchanged glances. Jason looked mildly uncomfortable, but Matt rolled his eyes. "Come on, man, don't be so serious. It was just a bit of fun." "Yeah," Dave chimed in, shrugging. "You're making it sound like we committed some crime. We thought you'd laugh it off." I felt a flash of irritation. "Laugh it off? You guys set me up on a fake date, made me think someone was interested in me, and then called me weird for actually wanting a second date. How is any of that funny?" They shifted uncomfortably, realizing that I wasn't about to let it go so easily. Jason, who usually stayed on the sidelines of things like this, finally spoke up. "Look, we didn't think you'd take it that seriously. I mean, we thought you'd see it for what it was, a joke." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did any of you stop to think about how it would feel on my end? I mean, what kind of friend set someone up just to watch them get humiliated?" Matt scoffed, shaking his head. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Dude, it's not like you were actually in love with her or something. It was one date. But that's not the point," I said, meeting his gaze. "It was supposed to be harmless fun for you guys. But I'm not a joke. You all set me up to look like an idiot. And you didn't care how it would make me feel. And then, when I actually liked her, you acted like that was the weirdest thing ever." They fell silent, a hint of guilt flickering across their faces. Dave looked away, rubbing his neck, while Jason just stared at his drink. Matt, however, still seemed defensive. "So, what, you're just going to cut us off because of one prank?" Matt asked, his tone edging toward frustration. "I mean, lighten up. It's not like we meant for it to turn into some big drama." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. "It's not about cutting anyone off. It's about respect. You guys treated me like I was some character in a sitcom instead of your friend. And to be honest, I don't think you're sorry at all. You're just upset that I'm calling you out on it." Dave finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "Okay, maybe we went too far. I get it, but you know us. Man, we didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you'd laugh. That's all. Yeah, Jason added, looking at me with a more apologetic expression. We messed up. I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd actually like her that much. There was a long pause. And I could see that at least Dave and Jason were starting to understand. Matt, however, still seemed to be holding onto his pride. His face was set in a stubborn frown. And I knew he wasn't going to apologize easily. Well, I'll tell you this, I said, my voice steady. I don't need friends who think humiliating me is fun. I need friends who respect me. Who understand that I'm not some character they can laugh at. And yeah, maybe I took it seriously. But so what? I don't need to justify wanting to find someone who actually likes me. For a moment, no one spoke. Matt shifted uncomfortably. But Dave and Jason both nodded, looking more sincere this time. You're right, man, Dave finally said. We went overboard. I can see that now. And, I'm sorry, we didn't think it through. Jason nodded in agreement. Yeah, I didn't realize how much it would hurt. I'm sorry too. I looked at them, feeling a mix of relief and residual frustration. Thank you. I appreciate it, but just know that from now on, if you're going to play a prank on me, I'm not going to be as quick to forgive if it crosses the line. They nodded, seeming to understand. Matt, however, still hadn't apologized, and I could feel the tension between us. He crossed his arms, muttering something under his breath, and I knew he wasn't willing to let it go so easily. You got anything to say, Matt? I asked, looking directly at him. He shrugged, still looking defensive. I don't know, man, maybe you're just overthinking this. It's not like it was that big of a deal. I sighed, realizing that some people never quite understood. Fine, Matt, believe what you want, but if you think it's okay to treat people like that, maybe we're not as close as I thought. With that, I stood up, feeling a mix of sadness and satisfaction. Dave and Jason looked at me, a little regretful, but Matt just stared at his drink, unwilling to budge. I gave them a nod and left, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders as I walked out the door. On the way home, I thought about everything that had happened. The prank, the date, the way my friends had acted. Maybe some of them were genuinely sorry. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my friendship with Matt would never quite be the same. Still, I felt a newfound sense of clarity, a realization that I didn't need friends who would humiliate me for fun. I needed people who would support me, respect me, and treat me like an equal. As I reached my apartment, I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Sarah. Hey. Just finished talking to my friends. It went about as well as I expected. She replied almost instantly. How are you feeling? Relieved. Actually, I wrote back. And grateful. I'd still love to see you again if you're up for it. Her response was quick, and this time, I could feel the warmth in her words. I'd like that too. Let's make it a real date this time. As I put my phone away, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This whole experience had started as a prank, but it had taught me something real about myself and the people I wanted in my life. I was done being the punchline. From here on out, I was ready to be my own person. No more pranks. No more games. Just the people who mattered and the relationships that made me feel seen. After talking to my friends, things felt different. I couldn't ignore the slight pang of disappointment that Matt hadn't been able to understand where I was coming from. But I felt lighter overall. And above all, I felt like I gained a new sense of clarity. I wasn't here to be anyone's joke or to play along with someone else's version of who I should be. I was ready to live for myself, and for whatever came next. Sarah and I planned our second date for that Friday evening. This time, I suggested a casual Italian spot I loved, the kind of place with old-school charm, great pasta, and the sort of intimate atmosphere that made conversation feel easy. She agreed, and I spent the whole week feeling like a kid before Christmas. Anticipation building with each day. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this excited about a date. When Friday rolled around, I made sure to get there a few minutes early, the nerves hitting me all over again as I waited. But when she walked in, I felt myself relax. Sarah had this calming energy about her. And as soon as she saw me, her face lit up in a warm smile that made my own nerves melt away. Hey, she said, settling into the booth across from me. Thanks for choosing this place. I love Italian food. I was hoping you would. I replied, smiling. It's one of my favorites. We ordered wine and pasta. And as the evening went on, the conversation flowed as naturally as it had the first time. We talked about everything: work, travel, family, Even embarrassing childhood memories. Every story she shared only made me like her more. There was something so open and genuine about her. A kindness I hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. At one point, as we were finishing up our meal, she looked at me thoughtfully. "So, how did things go with your friends? You don't have to tell me if it's too personal. But I wanted to check in." I took a breath, nodding. It was interesting, to say the least. I think some of them got it. But I realized that maybe not all of my friendships are as solid as I thought. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. A soft, comforting gesture. "I'm sorry. That sounds really hard." "It is," I admitted, "but it's also kind of freeing. I think I learned a lot about myself in the process, about what I want from friendships and relationships." Her hand lingered on mine, and we both fell silent for a moment, just looking at each other. There was something unspoken between us, an understanding that felt like more than just chemistry. I felt like I could be myself around her, without the constant pressure to live up to anyone's expectations. It was refreshing. "So, tell me," she said, breaking the silence with a playful grin. "What's your biggest secret? I figure if we started this with a prank, we should skip right to the good stuff." I laughed, her teasing breaking the tension. Biggest secret, that's a tough one. But I'll tell you a little one." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "I actually took up painting during college. Not that I'm any good, but it's a great way to unwind." Her eyes widened with genuine surprise. "No way. What kind of stuff do you paint?" "Mostly landscapes," I admitted, feeling a little embarrassed. "It's just a hobby, really, but I keep a few pieces around. I'd love to see them sometime," she said, sounding genuinely interested. Her curiosity felt validating, like she actually wanted to get to know the real me. Quirks and all. The evening wore on, and soon it was time to leave. We walked out together, the warm night air filled with the subtle hum of the city. As we reached her car, I turned to her, feeling the familiar butterflies in my stomach. "Sarah," I said, hesitating for a moment, I really like spending time with you." She looked at me with a soft smile. "I like spending time with you too. A lot." For a moment, neither of us spoke, and then, before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, and when she kissed me back, it felt like all the tension of the past week faded away. Here, with her, everything felt right. We pulled away, both of us smiling like teenagers with a new crush. "So, third date?" I asked, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. She laughed, her eyes shining. "Definitely. I'll leave the planning to you." As she drove off, I felt a sense of peace and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. It didn't matter how this had started or what my friends had intended with their prank. What mattered was that I'd found someone who saw me for who I was and liked me for it. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth everything I'd gone through to get here. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I continued to see each other. We took it slow, getting to know each other through small moments, sharing laughs over coffee, going on long walks in the park, and watching movies that neither of us had seen before. Each date was a chance to learn something new about her, and each time, I found myself growing more and more attached. Meanwhile, things with my friends remained a little strained, especially with Matt. Dave and Jason had made a real effort to make things right, reaching out to check in on me and apologizing again. But with Matt, there was still an awkwardness that lingered, a feeling that he hadn't fully understood or respected where I was coming from. I tried to brush it off, focusing on the positive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that our friendship had shifted. Then, one evening as Sarah and I were watching a movie at my place, I heard my phone buzz. I picked it up, surprised to see a text from Matt. It was short and simple. "Hey, man, can we talk?" I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to make of it. But then, with Sarah's hand gently squeezing mine, I typed back, "Yeah, let's talk." We met the next day at a coffee shop, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a side of Matt that wasn't just his usual cocky, joking self. He looked almost nervous. "Hey," he said, sitting down across from me. "Thanks for meeting up." I nodded, keeping things neutral. "What's up?" He took a deep breath, looking me in the eye. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About respect and friendship and, well, I think I owe you an apology." I was surprised, but I didn't say anything, letting him continue. "I messed up," he admitted. "I thought it was just a harmless prank, but I didn't realize how hurtful it would be." I know I was being stubborn. And I wasn't really listening to you. So, I'm sorry. I don't want to lose our friendship over this." Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. "Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And I want to be clear, it wasn't about the prank itself. It was about feeling like my feelings didn't matter. Like I was just someone to laugh at instead of someone you actually respected." He nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "I get that now. And I'm sorry. I was being an idiot." We sat in silence for a moment. Then, gradually, the conversation eased into a familiar rhythm. By the time we left the coffee shop, it felt like we'd found our way back to the friendship we'd had before. In the following months, my life took on a new rhythm. Sarah and I continued to grow closer, sharing moments that felt meaningful and real. My friendships had been tested, but the experience had ultimately brought us closer together. I felt more grounded, more secure, knowing that I had people in my life who valued me for who I was. One evening, as Sarah and I were watching the sunset, she turned to me with a soft smile. "You know, I'm glad you gave me a second chance. I'm glad we didn't let a silly prank ruin something that turned out to be pretty amazing." I squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her words. Me too. In the end, life had a funny way of working things out. What had started as a prank had led me to something real. Something that felt like it was worth every challenge, every doubt, and every lesson learned. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that, despite everything, I wouldn't have changed a single thing.